Hello, everybody. I am really going to have some fun today. This is something new that I haven't done before. This is, I don't know if we're going to call this a new segment to the show or not, but we are calling it Conversations. It's something totally new. And this is a chance for me to talk with my friends, the amazing photographers that I know around the world. And this is Christopher Briscoe. Chris Briscoe has been a friend of mine for a number of years. I'm going to let him tell the story of how we became friends, but he spends about half of his time living here in Ashland and the other half of the time living somewhere where the weather's even nicer. And
La Jolla, California.
La Jolla, California. And he has been a beacon of light for me here in this town.
You made my day. Thank you.
Well, so
thank you.
We're just going to talk about photography, talk about some projects that he's working on, and just have some fun here. So
what a pleasure being here. I cannot tell you. You know, I have to tell you how I first met Joseph. Actually, it wasn't face-to-face. It was over his podcast. And I, sometimes have a hard time getting to sleep at night, so I'll put on a podcast, TWIP. And TWIP goes on, and I'm like, sleep 2 seconds.
And that puts him to sleep. That's great. Thanks, buddy. And that's the show.
But seriously, I really became enamored with this character named Joseph on TWIP. And he just brought something that was unique to TWIP. And I thought, after a while, I got to find out when Joseph's going to be on. So then I started following him. And then one summer, he mentioned that he was moving to this little smoky town in southern Oregon. And I looked outside and I said, it could be here. So then the next week, he mentioned Ashland. I said, you know what? I got to find this guy. So I called him up, and I invited him to dinner, and he came to dinner. That was amazing. So we've been great friends ever since, and you have something that I don't have, in the far left side of my brain, and I learn a lot from you. I learn a lot from you, not only from your podcast, but every time I come to your studio, I learn a lot from you.
Well, thank you for saying that.
And knowing your amazing wife and your family has been a pleasure too.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really nice to say. I mean, this guy is such an incredible photographer, as you're about to see, and I'm absolutely inspired by the work that he does. And I may be the uber tech geek, but at the end of the day, you're the real photographer in the room. So let's talk about some of the stuff that you've been working on. I mean, this is one of these conversations. We could do this for probably about the next 2.5 days and not stop.
There you go.
So we're going to have to pick some topics. We got your water. That's all we need. But Christopher has put together a series of photos that he wants to talk about. He's been working on a lot of different projects over the last, I guess we don't have to say how many years you've been shooting, but it's been a few.
Well, one of the things I'm grateful that you didn't ask me is that a lot of times on certain podcasts, they say, well, tell us how you got started. The guy said, I worked for the yearbook, and then so I'm not going to tell you that.
You're not going to tell me that, no. Good.
But I am going to tell you that I've been doing it for 35 years, and I started out working for newspapers, and then I worked for some rock and roll bands and went on tour. And then I opened up a studio, which is something I thought I'd never do. And then I started shooting weddings, which is something I thought I would never do. And I really totally got into them.
Was that here in Ashland?
Yes, this was here in Ashland. This was in the 80s and 90s. And I get the bride and groom underwater, the next day in their gown, and they'd look at me like, "Are you sure?" One time I convinced them to chase each other on top of a parked freight train. And, the veils flying and everything. So I was, I thought, okay, if I'm going to do weddings, I'm going to be totally different and do it my way.
That's
and
awesome.
That's kind of why, this is, one of my latest promo picture, because I wanted to be. Let's put it up.
Let's get that up there. Here we go.
So, I didn't want to have just a portrait like everyone else, so I got in the bathtub. I want everyone to know that I'm a different, So I did the traditional studio stuff for a long time, and which I loved, and I still have clients in different parts of the United States, a lot in Washington, D.C., Santa Barbara, Montecito, Denver, and a few other places. And then I started doing special projects.
Okay.
And one of the special projects that I'm still working on, there's a wonderful cowboy named Terry who lives up in the Siskiyou Mountains. And he walked into my studio one day, I think with his grandson, who was getting a portrait for something. And I looked at this guy, and this was what he looked like. And I said, excuse me, to the grandson, love you, buddy, but can you move over for just a second? And so Terry the cowboy and I became great friends. And I went up to his ranch several times with him, and every time I go up there, I think, well, I can't get anything better of this guy. But every single time, I just had this connection with Terry that I just love. And he lives in this little tiny trailer on this friend's ranch up there, and he's got his little dog, Maggie, sitting on his lap, and he's always has a rifle whenever he comes to Ashland. When he comes to Ashland, we go out for coffee, he's packing a 6-gun on his hip. And I said, Terry, you can't take that in the coffee shop. They're all going to hit the deck. Can you just leave this in the studio? He says, okay. So he unpacks.
But it's Oregon. It's open.
But it's Oregon, yes. So he's always he's been a wonderful person to know and to photograph. And I cannot stop taking photographs of this guy. And it's one of these, again, special projects that has added a dimension to my work that I really crave and look forward to doing.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. So how long have you been photographing this guy now?
Almost, I'd say about 9 or 10 months. And
this is fairly new. Okay.
yeah, I love this guy. I love where he lives. And if he were in LA, he would be working every single day. Every gesture he does, his clothes, I don't have to coach him at all.
Yeah.
He's just, as you know, there are these people that you meet, and they just got it.
Yeah, they do.
And it's really a pleasure to spend time with him.
Nice. Beautiful photos. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So just because this is a photography conversation, and I'm sure all the people are going to know, what are you shooting with? Actually, let's talk about what you're shooting with later. For these photos, are these lit? Are you bringing in lights for these? Or are you just shooting them au natural and then processing them in Photoshop? Or these clearly have a not straight out of the camera look to them. So what are you doing to these images?
Well, one of the things, I'm a total minimalist, and it's taken me in a new direction with all the mirrorless cameras that I heard about first on TWIP. Really, seriously. Yeah. I remember listening to TWIP and sitting up in bed going, whoa, this sounds cool. So I ordered the Sony, and I was with Jay Mizell and several other photographers from around the world in New York City, and they all had these Canons, so these huge lenses, and the whole workshop was on street photography. And I had my little Sony with the flip-up screen. Yep. So instead of pointing and, hunting people, I had my little flip-up screen. And earlier, a couple of weeks prior, some people wanted me to go to Africa and photograph some gorillas. And they said, Chris, you can't get closer than 23 feet to these gorillas or they will charge you.
Sure.
So when you bring up your camera, be really careful. And I had my little Sony, and I said, and I looked down into the screen, well, what about this? And they said, well, that's perfect. And then I thought about that conversation, and I think, people are the same thing, same way.
Sure.
Even if we're best friends and I bring up a big lens and I'm pointing it in face, you're going to have some kind of reaction.
Absolutely.
So during this Jay Mizell time, I was in the street with these little Sonys, and these other photographers just thought I was kind of whacked, And I was getting stuff that a lot of them weren't getting because of this different kind of looking. So to answer your question, when I photograph the cowboy, I take my Sony and, I take a couple bodies, a couple lenses, and I don't take flashes. I rarely even take a reflector anymore. And I find the light. So when he leans in this doorway of this barn and I see the windows in the back, and then, he's just the perfect model. Whoops, I lost my thing here. So one of the things I would like to talk about that I've developed in the last probably 6 months is that, I listen to all these podcasts, and every morning I go to coffee, and, I'll listen to podcasts, or I'll go online and I'll, listen to all, read all these other tutorials, and I'll get a little piece here and a little piece here from Sean Bagshaw, or a little piece here, from someone else. And then I'll have a dilemma, and all the pieces, when I'm lucky, come together. So I've been making these streaks of light. So if you go back to this shot right here, see the streaks of light coming in from the side?
Sure.
That's what I did. I did that. And I didn't bring a light with me. If we go back, see those streaks of light? Now this picture, without the streaks of light, and the trick is to make them not look like, streaks of light, the original picture of that was kind of boring. But when I do my thing, it isolates, it draws the viewer into where you want it to go, And there you go. And then I know how to warm up just the streaks of light.
Right.
And it's really,
That's awesome.
We could go in together and I can teach you the secret formula.
The secrets of light.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Right on. Very
But the
cool.
special projects, this is, a guy that you met in New Orleans,
Absolutely,
Sal.
I did.
And I called him up. I've been working on my second book on New Orleans. I called him up, Sal. He's the guy that repairs all the street musicians' instruments in New Orleans. And I called him up. He said probably the same thing to you. Okay, you can come over for a little while, but I'm busy. I got to keep working. Is that what he said to you?
Yeah, exactly what he said.
And you walk in this place, and I just stood there for a few minutes just gathering the visual cacophony of it all in. And, you've got this pot of this cooking glue in the background and sawdust everywhere. And then he says, people come in here and they say, you've had my instrument for 6 months. When am I going to get it? And I just yell back at him, you're going to get it when you get it. I don't own this place. It owns me. And characters like that, and that's why I love New Orleans, is, you could just spend all day taking
absolutely.
pictures of Sal,
Well, the only reason we left was because we had other things to do.
Yeah, you had to catch a flight.
Could have kept shooting easily.
I go there at least twice a year. I love that place.
Yeah.
I love that place.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I met Sal, and then there's another place in Ashland, Oregon, called.
That's cool.
Yeah, isn't this beautiful? And I went in there, and again, the background is just a clutter of instruments waiting to be repaired and Bellwood violin. It's like stepping back.
Wait, this is here?
Yes, this is not Sal's anymore. This is. I wanted to find Sal's counterpart, and I found it in my hometown.
No kidding.
Yes, and so this is on Hersey Street.
Okay.
Bellwood violin, and I walk in there, and I felt like I stepped back a few hundred years. They repair. He told me, Stephen Bacon, who owns it, told me that they repair some violin that someone bought at a yard sale for $25, or someone will ship them a viola they need repaired that costs $2 million. And I love hands, and they just love, I just get to hang out there and shoot. See those streaks of light?
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. See the streaks of light? Don't tell anybody. Now, see those tones? I worked on a whole story about Bellwood violin, and I wanted a consistent tone throughout the whole thing. So another great photographer in our town, ironically, is David Winston. And he's developed these tones that aren't sepia tone, they're not color, so I call them windstones after his last name. So with windstones, I did the whole story on Bellwood violin with windstones. So when you look at these pictures, you're going to see a consistency of tones and the top secret streaks.
The top secret streaks with the stones. I got them. It's a little late for that. All right, so let's go back then. Let's swipe through some things then.
The tones, the streaks in the background, the subtle lighting. It took me hours to light that. It took me hours, but not with lighting. Let me show. Whoops. So from music to music, the other great gig that I have in the Rogue Valley, ironically, is with the Rogue Valley Symphony. And Martin, the conductor, has turned out to be one of my dear friends. This guy, 2 PhDs, he's from Slovakia. He's a world-class guy. And his work and my work somehow resonate together, and we create this synergy where, sometimes I have wacko ideas, and he looks at me like, you want me to what? And I'll call him up and say, Martin, there's a snowstorm outside. Get your tuxedo on. I'll pick you up in 10 minutes. I got a bike. And I'll ring his doorbell, and he'll be kind of like almost dressed and go, we're going to go where? In outside? So sometimes, I'll say, Martin, get your tuxedo on. We're going underwater. And so, there he is in one of the storms, in the tuxedo, and he's conducting and everything. And then another time, get your tuxedo on. We're going underwater. So then I'm in the, he was guest conducting in Los Angeles, so I got him to come down to La Jolla. Nice. And we had 20 minutes, and the guy was soaked. He was getting a little mad at me, frankly. And this is not photoshopped at all. I call this taming the beast. And there he is at Windansea in La Jolla, and it's one of his favorite pictures. But, here he is, in somebody's pool in Jacksonville, and I'm leaning him over with the Sony again with this little fisheye on it. And if I didn't have the flip-up screen, I would have had to had someone hold me over, on scaffolding, and it would have taken forever. But with this, I just flip up the screen and, put the fisheye on and hold it over them, and I got that.
It's funny you say that. So I remember when I first started working with, any camera that had an LCD on the back, that's not a real camera, right? If it's got an LCD, that's not real. Real cameras you put your eye up to.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I still really enjoy putting my eye up to the camera, but that LCD has become so invaluable. And because of it's not just on the back, I mean, that's like holding your iPhone up, but that flip up capability to go down or forward, facing towards you, or holding it up above your head is incredible. And what you're talking about for this picture, where you held it out like that, I did the exact same thing on a shoot for Mercedes, and I was shooting, it was in Los Angeles, and I was shooting over this kind of overpass, and it's this big, really thick piece of concrete we're standing on, the car's underneath, and if I just stand at the edge and point the camera down, half of the frames, the concrete, the camera's got to get way out there. So I've got a backpack on, and someone's holding onto my backpack to hold me, and I'm all strapped in, and I'm leaning forward, and they're holding onto me, and I'm leaning out as far as I can to get that camera out. The LCD popped up so that I can shoot straight down. But it's incredible.
It's that little thing, just has changed. It's changed my whole photography because, again, I'm looking down instead of pointing something. It's been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Martin, he's just up for anything, and that's why we work so well together, and we become such great friends. And Martin, I took him to New Orleans last year, and he became friends with the same people that you and I had become friends with. And to watch Martin, in the Ninth Ward at Little Freddie King's house, who comes out. His dark glasses on, that red jacket he's got on, 74 years old, plugs in, starts jamming, and I look over in the corner, and Martin is sitting there. The conductor is sitting on the floor. His jaw is on the ground. And I knew that his life had just shifted. When he got back to Ashland, he emailed me, and he said, Chris, I'm reevaluating everything in my entire career because of my visit to New Orleans.
Wow.
Yeah, true story.
Incredible city.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Let's see if I've got any more of Martin here. This is another project.
Okay.
So I'm in the coffee shop in next door to my studio, and I see these two cowboys. And I'm going, whoa, I'd love to photograph them. But, I'd love to photograph a lot of people. So I come back to my studio. My studio, as you know, is just surrounded by pictures of my son, Quincy. And, I think, when we become parents, as you know, we part of us, some of us, have this fantasy that they're going to be little clones of ourselves, who are better looking and smarter, and they're going to grow up to be the president, right? So then I go back and I'm listening to the Cowboys talk about their relationship. And I go, oh, Brokeback Mountain, cool. And they have this amazing conversation with this third party about their relationship. So I make friends with them. I call up my book designer. I'm doing a new book. It's called Love is Love. And it's all about relationships that did not go the route of what the parents expected, but the parents finally got it together and loved them just as profoundly as if they were those stupid little fantasies that we all have. So those are the Cowboys. And then I met another guy, and this guy's name is Paul, and he's in his 70s, and he has a son who has been on death row for 26 years.
Whoa.
And through a lot of finagling, Paul and I went up and I met with his son, Jeff, for 2 hours behind glass. And it was an amazing emotional experience for me, as well as being a photographer. Talking to this fella, and I had to research what kind of questions I wanted to ask him, because I knew that I would have maybe 20 seconds to gain his trust. He might think I'm a cop or another lawyer or whatever, but I knew that I would have to gain his trust behind this 2-inch thick glass in 20 seconds. So I met with a lot of people prior, and I had all these questions written down on these, and then I knew I was going to be with him for 2 hours, so I had to have a little pencil and a couple pieces of paper. But when you go in death row, you go through the special office, and you got to go through a metal detector. You have to lock everything except for your car key and your driver's license in the trunk of your car. So you hand it to the officer, and then you got to go through the metal detector, and it goes off. And I was smuggling in my pencil and my piece of paper. So I whip out my belt, and I just hand it to him, and I keep walking. So then, no one's going to find out about this, right? Okay, good.
It's just between us.
So,
Private conversation on Facebook.
so I had this amazing conversation with Jeff about his life on death row, and I asked him questions like, "So if you got paroled tomorrow, what would you do?" And he says, "Chris, a lot of people on the tier ask me that, and I got to tell you, I've got my electricity, my bills are paid for here. I don't have to worry about anything. If someone knocked a hole through that wall right now, the first thing I would look for," and in my mind I'm thinking, okay, he'd either go to McDonald's or a wild club or something. And he said, "I would look for a bench." He says, "I'm old, I'm fat, and I'm okay here." And that was, to me, one of the most revealing, shocking parts of this 2-hour conversation. So then after the conversation, it was time to go. But in the middle, a little segue of being a photographer, he had saved up these little coupons that they can save up. They're like money. And there is not on death row, but in the prison, there's a photographer. So this guy comes in to take our pictures because Jeff had saved up his coupons to buy a photo session with the glass in the middle of the two of us.
Wow.
And I'm humbled. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so this guy comes in and he reminds me of Jimmy on Jimmy Olsen on Superman. And he's really excited. He's got his little camera bag and he's got this job and he's so excited to be there and he's got a job to do, right? And so I'm leaning into the glass and Jimmy Olsen's over there and Jeff is leaning into the glass and I'm telling myself, don't smile. We're all trained to smile. Do not smile. So Jimmy is taking these pictures, and I noticed that he's just shooting straight flash. And he says, "Well, you want to look at the back?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, let's bounce this flash up a little bit. Jimmy, why don't you move over a little bit?" And yeah, those look good, Jimmy. So the funniest part for me, as you know, starting out photographers in studios, we all have these photo packages. And we've worked on all our photo packages through the years. So little Jimmy turns to me and says, "Well, Mr. Briscoe, now we have two packages. We have package A with 2 5x7s and 1 8x10, or package B with 4 4x6s. What would you like?" And I said, "Oh, I'll take package B, thank you." And package B arrived in the mail. I don't know who processed them. About a week later. So I just thought, whether you've got a photo studio on Main Street or on the tier, you got to work on those packages. They're important.
That's funny.
So we leave after the 2 hours, and we're following the jailer through this maze, kind of this tunnel of barbed wire. And I look over, and about 20 feet away, there is the cage, which is about 15 by 30 feet. And there's one basketball hoop in there, and they only let 3 prisoners in at once there. One guy is walking around the perimeter as fast as he can, watching his own feet, kind of like a gerbil in a cage. And the other guy is shooting hoops by himself, and the third guy lays down in the middle of the blacktop on his back and lifts his shirt up as far as it'll go, as if to absorb every bit of sunlight he can in the next 42 minutes. Every 23 hours, they get out for 44 minutes.
Wow.
They can choose to go to the cage, they can choose to take a shower, or to make a phone call. And the most humbling thing that happens to me often is Jeff calls me. And it's a tough one for me because, I might be in La Jolla sitting in this hoity-toity coffee house where everyone's talking about their Lamborghinis, and I'm talking to Jeff. Wow. Using up the remainder of his 43 minutes. So that's a humbling part of what I do. So then we get out in the car and we unlock the trunk and in there is the Sony camera. And I'm looking up and there's this guy in the guard tower. Let's see if I got it here. So this is Paul with a picture of his son that is going in my book, Love is Love. And this is a guard tower. And this guy is eyeballing me like he's kind of bored. Maybe he's a sniper from Afghanistan and he's just bored. He just wants me to do something, right? So I have my jacket in the trunk and I get my Sony camera and I put it on the jacket and I get in, I start the car and I put down my my window. And I said, the hell with it. I'm just going to start shooting. So I'm just going along the walls and I'm just strafing everything, right? And nobody's doing anything. And we're out there and see this little lane that, follows the walls. And, I'm there and, with Paul, the dad next to me. and a gaggle of ducks, coming down the grass there. And so I turned to Paul and I said, look, I just want to take one more picture and then we'll get out of here because the gate is right there and that's the Freedom Gate. So we're all by it. And I said, now, Paul, I'm just going to take one picture of the admin building. Keep your eyes open. She says, okay, I'm watching. So I go click and nothing happens. And I go click and nothing happens. So I'm thinking, in your brain, how you did I put in what kind of card did I put in? That's not full already.
Right.
So the hell with it. I'm not going to, look and see what the problem is. I'm yanking that card out. I put it deep in my pocket. I put in a fresh card and I go click. And with that click, there is a guard in my face so close I can smell his chewing gum. And it's like Cool Hand Luke, like he says, son, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And he's like, he is so pissed. I'm sure he has a cell waiting for me right there, And I'm going, oh my God. And he cusses me out and he says, son, you're gonna format that card right now and I'm gonna watch you. And I'm going, okay, and I push the format button and then it says, are you sure you want to format this? And I go, yes. And he watches the line go, and we drive off and that other card is in my pocket. And I turn to the dad, Paul, and I said, Paul, do you see what just happened? He says, Chris, I sure did. That was a close one. So
glad you got away with that, right? Or you wouldn't be here right now. You'd be locked away in a cell.
I'd be thinking of that hole in the wall,
44-minute break.
Yeah, my 44-minute break. What am I going to do with that? Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's an interesting book project, and I had this amazing woman that came in with, she has a Down syndrome kid, and we put all of his medals from Special Olympics all over the floor,
Okay.
And that was wonderful. And then another woman came in with her son, who was Matt, who used to be Maddie, and at age 15 came to mom and said, I was born in the wrong gender body. And to sit down with them and hear that story of a world that I know nothing about, every single person it seems like I photograph like that, I get up and I am a changed person to some degree. Like my time, at Death Row, or my time with Maddie or the Cowboys, the two guys that just got married, by the way. Or
right on.
Yeah, or the cowboy up on the Green Springs.
Nice.
That's what I love about what we do. We get to connect with people.
We have some pretty special opportunities, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm falling off your chair. He's got it rigged.
Gave him the kneeling chair. He's really tall, so I give him the little chair.
The trap door opened up. Okay, we've got enough of you.
Oh, man. That's awesome. Very good. Do we have more, or is that what you put together for us?
I don't know. Well, of course, I pushed the wrong button, and we've got through. Yeah, that's the one of that. And, this one I took a long time ago with that thing they call film. It was in the 80s.
I've heard of that.
It's not the stuff in between your teeth. It's yeah. And I always use hands. I always use diagonal lines in my work, and it's just, a timeless face. And this was taken with film. This guy was in Jacksonville, a miner there, and I just pulled over my car, and I just love faces. People ask me often, do you ever shoot landscapes? And I always tell them, to me, the most beautiful landscape is the human face. Those beautiful hills in Ashland, a few hundred years from now, they're going to be pretty much the same. But all of the faces that we know now and all the relationships, they're all going to be gone. And we have this opportunity, really, to freeze time for people.
Absolutely.
And, as a parent, how quickly those moments go. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to go and photograph faces. Another project I did was in Cambodia and Thailand. And I went to Cambodia and Thailand. I wanted to do something a little bit different. You know how when you see photographers or tourists show people the back of their cameras, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to leave something for them.
Sure.
And I realized that where I was going, a lot of people had never had their portrait taken. So HP, I think, anyway, I don't know who makes this, but they had a little battery-operated printer. And it was great, and it fit in. It was kind of large then. Of course, now they make really cool ones that are twice as big as your iPad or your iPhone that Polaroid has.
Right, yeah.
But so I went to these refugee camps of like 40,000 people, and they looked at me like, who is this guy and what's he doing here? And I talked to this one family into letting me take their picture. Then I hooked up my battery-operated Epson printer and started making them 4x6s. And I was like the Pied Piper for the rest of the day. It was incredible.
That's cool.
So I did that, and then I took it, so that's one end of what I do. And the other end of what I do is I have clients all over the United States. These are great clients of mine in Washington, D.C., and I do their Christmas cards. So on the one hand, I'm in the refugee camp. On the other hand, I'm in McLean, Virginia, at Ethel Kennedy's old house, Hickory Hill, and staying in the guest house with the kids and doing their Christmas cards that are going to go out to a couple thousand people. So you don't want to mess up with that, And these little pants and shirts and hair, we've got people on either side making sure that every hair is in place.
Really?
So yeah, it's a big deal. And, in Santa Barbara, I have a great connection with just some wonderful, wonderful people that the Douglases in particular. Kirk is going to be 100 years old this December.
No kidding.
And this was at Kirk and Ann's 60th wedding anniversary a couple years ago in Beverly Hills. And this picture is really a really great father-son picture. Here you've got Spartacus, almost now 100, and you've got Michael Douglas, and this moment that I was at the right place with the right everything, and I went click. But we talk a lot about social media and clicks and likes and all that stuff, and we're all chasing that. Well, when Michael got this, he asked me if he could put it on his Facebook. So I'm sitting out in front of the coffee shop, and so he puts it on at 8 a.m., and by 10 a.m., 2 hours later, I had 127,000 likes. And he had put a banner across the bottom, photo courtesy Christopher Briscoe.
Nice.
You know how many more times my phone rang after that?
That's impressive.
You heard it here. Not one extra time.
No
127,000 likes with my name bannered on the bottom. And that was 127,000 likes in 2 hours. Kirk just came out with his 19th book, and I'm watching Entertainment Tonight, and the woman who's interviewing him says, one of the best pictures I love in your book is this one. And he says, I have that right next to my bed. You know how many more times my phone rang? Not one extra time. I told Michael, I said, next time, can you just put my phone number across the thing? But the chase that we're all in social media with clicks and likes and all that, I don't know.
Occasionally gets somewhere, but I'm actually a little surprised that it didn't get you anywhere there.
Spielberg, my buddy Spielberg,
cool.
Another great father, son, They love each other, and I am humbled and grateful to be, and Catherine, this was taken several years ago of her little boy. She's a great mom. So one day I'm at their house doing these photographs. The next day I'm in the dump in Cambodia. And I'm watching, a mom in Cambodia in the ashes, taking off the labels of cans so she and her little boy can, to turn them in to get, a penny or two. Mm-hmm. And the conversation, I didn't understand Thai or Cambodian, but the thread of the conversation, the tone of it, is the same that Catherine has with her kids. All we want for our kids is for them to be happy and be educated and be safe. Whether, they live in the dump in Cambodia or Thailand or in Montecito. Yeah. The governor, I was at the state capitol a year or two ago, and the cool thing about him is, first of all, he looks like a rock star. And I went into his office, and, I'm not starstruck. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of do, I say, okay, can you go underwater? Well, we don't have. I said, so can I just stand? So this is a typical portrait of the governor in his really cool office. But then I just stand up on a chair. And again, I whip out my Sony, right, with the fisheye. And I said, Governor, can I just stand on this? Can you put your boots up on your desk? And he says, Chris, I'll do anything you want, And so I just hold it over him. And, that's, to me, a more fun picture than,
for sure.
Something traditional like that. So I just I'm always going for the edge. This is, some friends of mine in Montecito says, Chris, we're having Gorbachev over for dinner. You want to come? Yeah, I'll go to that dinner. So I don't know if I should say this, but you know the comedian Dennis Miller?
Sure.
This is his little boy who was at a sleepover at my friend's house. So this is a sleep, with Gorbachev. So then over at dinner in the other room are about 10 couples, Olivia Newton-John and Bo Derek and, these amazing. So I go to the foyer of my friend's house there. I go up on the stairs and I look down into this empty foyer. And in my brain, how you pre-visualize the what ifs, I see this chair with Gorbachev and all the beauties in the other room around Gorbachev. I said, how am I going to do this? Well, I can't do it. So then, Gorbachev's daughter, I just met her. I go up to her, I explain it, and she says, my father will do anything for me. Whoa. So there you go. Gorbachev's in the middle, Olivia Newton-John and Bo Derek, and this woman's married to a beach boy, and Gorbachev was beaming. He was happy.
I can see why.
Happy guy. Yeah. One of my friends said, hey, we're having Sheryl Crow over. We're going to do a little backyard thing, fundraiser. Can you come? I'm on the plane. Sheryl was great. But the thing I love about what I do is the kind of the breadth of my clients. So this is a sweet girl in Montecito, right? The same age girl, just as sweet, just as happy. This is her home. These are the clothes that she found out of the dump. And it really shifts your soul
it does.
When you have an opportunity to photograph either end, either kids, knowing that, this age is gone forever of her. And it's really fantastic. This is the rest of her family had escaped across the river from Burma. And this was their first family portrait. So I whip out my printer.
Sure.
And this father and son had also escaped from Burma. And that's their first family portrait. And to be able to hand that to them is a really
Very
gratifying
cool.
experience. So photographers out there, get the mobile printer. I like I said, this Polaroid one that fits in your shirt pocket.
Yeah.
Makes 2x3s. It's pretty cool.
Do you have one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love
check
it.
it out. Cool.
Oh, yeah. Bluetooth, everything. It's
Nice.
and no ink cartridges and all this.
Right.
God, when I went there, I had to take all these ink cartridges and it was jamming and paper and all that stuff. I don't know. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
And this is this book I've been working on called Common Ground about my experience in Cambodia.
Very beautiful. Nice stuff, man.
It's so fun to be able to do this.
We are very fortunate, that is for sure. That is for sure. Well, thanks so much for coming on and having a chat with me. This has been fun.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure.
This has been fun. We'll have to do it again. This is,
Gosh, and to
next
think
time you're in town, let me know.
It's a deal.
Yeah, I think we'll turn this into a regular thing. I mean, there's plenty of photographers that we both know who live here, and then
Some
tons
great
more that
ones.
pass through.
Yep.
We'll just turn this into a little fireside chat.
Eric Mindling, you got to check out his work from Mexico. And
Well, yeah,
David
of course,
Winston
you introduced me to him a while ago.
and of course, we're all good friends with Sean Bagshaw, who is the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
I learn a ton from him.
Yeah, you talk about doing landscapes, and my reason for not doing too many landscapes is because Sean is just, you look at his work and you go, I'm done. That's okay. I don't need to. He's so good. His work is so
he's had a
incredible.
couple pictures in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
Wow. So can I show you
just
one
the
more
Smithsonian.
picture that just kind of sums up
Absolutely.
why I do. Now here's our buddy Amesy.
Yep.
Every morning when I work on my go to New Orleans and work on my project, he and I have breakfast at the grill there, and he's my connector with the rest of the people in New Orleans. But and then little Freddie, your friend and mine, all these amazing people. But the reason we do all of this is
That's your boy.
this is my son Quincy, and this is my son Quincy. Obviously,
That's
many
awesome.
years apart. But every year, I have brought him into my studio, put him on a white sweep background, and I dressed him in my tuxedo. And now, I have 21 years
So cool.
of him growing into the tuxedo, and all these moments, in his life are gone. But because of what we do, they're not gone. And that's the importance of why we do what we do.
To have the vision to do something like that starting 21 years ago, or more, but that's, I love it. Yeah, you've shown that to me before. It is incredible.
Well, he's a great
So
boy.
nice, so well done. Right on. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Good
for
having you
me.
on.
What
Thank
an
you,
honor.
everybody who's watching. And of course, this will be, for those who aren't watching live, this will be available later to see. So, right on. Well, you can check out Mr. Briscoe's website, chrisbriscoe.com.
chrisbriscoe.com.
Excellent. Please do check it out. See what he's got up on there. Lots of wonderful stuff. Thanks for tuning in. And
My
thank you.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Take care.